Hey everybody, welcome to the stream today. Let's get they can hear you. You guys could probably hear my wife in the background. Let's get down to it. Let's get busy. Anyway, welcome to the stream. Um, it's a good Sunday morning. Like I said, sunny outside. It's cold today, but thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Michael, good to see you. We added the types that you guys suggested last time. Um, we'll check that out and see what we get there. Today I want to put anti-gravity through its paces, and maybe compare it a little bit to Junie. Hey, Ole, welcome to the stream. Um, so as you guys know, I'm not sponsored by WebStorm or JetBrains at all. I do get their stuff for free as part of being a GDE, and because I've done a bunch of surveys, like I've got so many, I got so much time of free JetBrains products. So they've been really good to me. So I'd like to check out how Junie compares. So we'll see how it goes today. There's a lot going on. You guys may have seen. So Friday night, I went to the Utah Jazz versus Detroit Pistons game in Salt Lake City with my family. It was a lot of fun. The Jazz were predicted to lose by 10, wound up winning the game by 2. And it was a fun ending to the game. It was all tied up. There was a last minute shot by George, leaving just under 3 seconds on the clock, and Detroit couldn't answer. So it was, the arena was so loud when that last minute shot was hit, putting the Jazz up by 2. It was a lot of fun. So I don't watch a lot of sports on TV, but I love a live sports game. So it was a lot of fun. Anyway, we are just going to jump right into it. There's a lot going on. My wife is just in here talking to me about some stuff that she wants to do after the stream. So let's get into it. I want to end on time today. I want to end on time today again today. It's the curse of the streamer. When you speak in normal conversation, you often make those silly, I'm not even going to call them mistakes. It's just the way your brain flows, right? You just often make those silly phrases and things like that. As a streamer, I'm constantly analyzing, okay, what did I say? Was that good? Did that sound good? Am I saying too much? Am I saying like too much? Oh no, I keep repeating the same thing over and over. That's just constantly going on in the back of my head. But luckily today we're going to let this angry old dragon, which I had a lot of fun with last time. We're going to let this angry old dragon take a look at our code base and see what we come up with. So let's jump in. And if you guys have any suggestions or anything you want to see, let us know, right? What version of Angular Service Extension? I don't actually have the Angular Service Extension installed. Maybe we should do that, shouldn't we? This is actually, so like I don't typically get into the code and use coding agents that much at work anymore. Most of my work is really high level. And so some of that weakness is starting to show. So let's take a look at the Angular service extensions, right? Dude, that guy is quick today. Wow. We're like, what are we? We're we're a couple minutes into this stream and we've got our first ban. Um, so let's take a look at this, right? The Angular language service. They released version 21 just a few days ago. This has been moved to Angular. So is this stuff just added with so we've got the client, the common, the docs. Download the extension from Visual Studio Marketplace. Oh, this is just the Angular language service. Never mind. Where do we get the Angular service extensions? You guys are gonna have to help me here. Really, anti-gravity. I was asking to check in the Gravity app. Okay, let's take a look at the Gravity app. So inside of here, we've got I don't have anything installed. Angular. So let's install the Angular language service. Yes, I trust this publisher. I don't remember. Do I ever use the Angular schema? I don't think I do. I've already got Prettier installed. This is the legacy. What is the difference between these two? I don't know. Angular 17 snippets, don't need them. And there's so many Prettier code fixers in here. So I didn't have the Angular language service installed. So good call out there. But there's also the Angular instruction set. But I don't know. Like all the different files that you add in your project that does things to inform the. Let's go take a look, right? We can stop serving for just a little bit and let's pop this open in in our file browser. So we've got a .angular, that's just a cache file. Got a .vs code, it's got extensions in it. Yeah, we don't have anything that's providing Angular specific. Yeah, we don't have anything that's providing specific. What do we want to call it? Like AI instructions. Usually there will be a folder in here. Let's see if we can find. So, Angular AI instructions. There we go. Build with AI. Prompt rules and best practices. Let's take a look at that. Building an AI-powered application is new and rapidly. GenKit gives you the choice. So, AI framework for full stack apps. See, I think Antigravity probably uses GenKit. TypeScript, GenKit CLI. Here's a set of instructions to help LLMs generate correct code that follows Angular best practices. System instructions in your AI tooling, including along with your prompt as context. So the Angular team has developed 2 versions of this file. Let's grab the LLM's full text. Check out this page. Okay. So getting started. So I've got the gen kit. Never put your API key. Yeah. Environments. Let's. So we did that. Let's grab this LLM's full text. We're going to save it in our dev. Signal forms experiment. And we're just going to see, so we're going to add the LLM's full text here. So we just downloaded that. And the Web Code Gen Score is actually a really cool tool also that we could take a look at in the future. Okay, so we've added this LLM's text. So let's see here. We're using Claude. Um, let's add some context. Can I so mentions or workflows, no results. Okay. So this should scroll label. um, One thing to be aware of is anti-gravity and the new Gemini models. We're not using Gemini right now. We're using Claude because it did a really good job. But they have 1 million. They have a 1 million token context. And the thing about like it's really hard to explain what a token is because to an LLM, the entire word value might be a token, just the V might be a token. This might be 4 tokens, it might be 3 tokens, who knows, right? So it's really, really tough to decide what a token would be. But um, for context, like OpenAI typically has a 16K token context, right? I don't know what Claude Sonnet's context is. We could take a look at that. These are typically really easy to find. Claude Sonnet 4.5 context window is usually, so it's 200K. But it looks like it could support a 1 million token context also, right? Depending on whether we're using the public beta or not, or things like that. So those are important to understand. 200K is huge compared to like the 16K of a lot. So when you're looking at context files like this, so 15,615 lines may take up your entire context window, right? And so then the LLMs start shifting things around. And so speak plainly, wretched creature. Or perhaps you merely wish to test whether I would explode in frustration. Tell me your intent. I wanted to add this as context. Can I not add context? Maybe it's just going to use it. Hey, Dota 2 Attitude, welcome to the stream. What's new? Today we are messing around with Angular and we're messing around with anti-gravity. So let's see if this adds anything new, right? So one of the things that we have a problem with is we don't have, and let's go back and start our serve again. So we're going to serve our files again. We can go ahead and close this. We don't need it. So yeah, I did some kata, that is a Trivial Pursuit mimic. It was pretty fun. Code was ungodly, broken to a degree that's not necessary, and a small example. So the good thing about that is that you recognize you need to improve. Like one of the cool things about coding katas, right, is they're designed to be done over and over again, and they're a way for you to help strengthen those muscles. Um, um, and by muscles, we're referring to it metaphorically, right? Like the point of a kata in martial arts is not to, it's to help you perfect your form, which is going to help perfect, your understanding of the martial art. Um, with coding katas, of course they're going to suck the first time you do them. Was broken to a degree that wasn't necessary. They just start with working code. That's, yeah, I agree with that. But coding kata, I don't know. Maybe you'll start, working on that muscle that allows you to build, to troubleshoot and fix broken code, which is going to be hugely necessary. Um, Oh, see, Dota, I gotta say, I disagree with that statement. Work code never doesn't work. You must be working at a place that's better than every other place that I've ever worked. There are so many times, like, tell me if you've never heard this phrase. It works on my machine, right? How many times does the build get broken? Things like that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And it may be outdated code. Who knows why it's broken? But yeah, I'll give that to you. I'll let you vent. But there have been times when the entire code base gets broken by a stupid refactor that somebody didn't test before they checked it in. And their testing was done on cached forms, and they weren't looking and seeing that it didn't build, and all that fun stuff. Um, so let's just say, hey, we're missing an add and delete feature for our to-do table. Add them for me. And the funny thing is like the way this angry dragon persona that I told it to take on is talking with us. It's making me want to be like, please, like, don't kill me. Lifts its head from a horde with interest. Ah, finally a proper request. You wish to grant your pitiful to-do application the ability to create and destroy tasks. How appropriately dragon-like. So it wants to add a to-do store method. Adding store methods for add and delete operations. So it's adding those. Cracks ancient knuckles, behold option. I'll enhance your store with the power to create and annihilate to-dos. I love this. I need to start, instead of calling it crud, we need to start calling it crad. Or no, it'd be crua, right? Crua. Annihilate. So, and I wish that this wasn't so annihilate to-dos. First, let me add the methods, and then excellent. The store now possesses the power to add and delete. I also fixed those pathetic array access errors. So those pathetic array access errors existed because we didn't have the add or delete. And I'm fighting against the scrolling here. One of the things that I wish it would do is not scroll to the bottom if I'd scrolled back to read some stuff, right? UI elements to the table, perfect. So now it's adding the logic. So now it wants to run the development server to test it. No, we're going to reject this command. I don't want it to run npm start. So it added those. It added a delete button. So let's see what it did. So in our store, the first thing it did was it added 26 lines. So let's see what the 26 lines do. So here, the toggle to do, so it did fix this bug. So we had the index before, but now it's checking if the index doesn't equal -1. Because when we use find index, it's going to return anything 0 or greater. And if it doesn't, it's going to return a -1, right? Like if it doesn't find it in the array, we get a -1. This is a good fix. We're going to accept this fix, which means we need to accept that also. Again, save to do. So in this one, save to do is different than add to do, which makes sense. So it did fix the index errors. I was thinking that save to do with a new to do would run some stuff for us. Instead, we're going to get this. That's fine. Add to do. So it is appropriately using create from mutative.js. Is pushing the to-do onto the list. That's fine. There might be some more work that's needed here. But for right now, that'll be fine. So on a delete, it's going to immediately deselect the to-do. It's going to patch the state. It's going to use mutative here. It's going to find the index and find the index to delete. And if the index does not equal -1, then it's going to splice it out of the array, and mutative will handle all of that for us. I'm good with this one too. So how's your Christmas break going? Save to do equals an upsert. Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking, is that save to do being an upsert. My Christmas is going great. It's been a lot of fun. We're taking advantage of Christmas to do some stuff that, just have some fun. So, for example, at the beginning of the stream, I was talking about we went to a jazz game. Me, my wife, and my 2 daughters. Yeah, it's weird not keeping track of the day for me. That one's a little bit weird too. But yeah, Christmas has been going really, really well. We went to a jazz game. We started watching. We've been watching the Percy Jackson as a family. So we started watching season 2 of that. My daughter and I. So my youngest daughter. She is a big anime fan, and one of the first animes we watched, well, the very first anime we watched together was Hunter x Hunter. One of the other ones we watched was the Seven Deadly Sins. And they've got a follow-up anime out there on Netflix right now called the Four Nights of the Apocalypse. It was the Seven Deadly Sins, the Four Nights of the Apocalypse. I've been watching that with my youngest. We've been enjoying that one quite a bit. And then other than that, I'm getting stuff done around the house. So been fixing light switches, fixing drawers, fixing, just all the things that happen. Watch Bert Hates Bad Guys. Hey Marcus, welcome to the stream. That's NBA. Never been. So I I started in the very, very beginning of the stream. I don't watch like NBA. I don't watch NFL. I don't watch things on TV. Um, but luckily, where I live, there are a bunch of colleges that compete at a decent level. There's BYU. There's University of Utah. There's UVU, Utah Valley University. They all have decent sports teams. And then we've got the Utah Jazz, which is the NBA team. We've got the Utah Mammoths, which is the NHL hockey team. And then we've got Real Salt Lake. Of those three, the Jazz and the Mammoths are probably the more fun for me to watch. I'm not a big football or soccer fan. I like pro football, but the closest pro football team to me is probably the Denver Broncos, and that's a bit of a drive. It's not that far to fly, but it's definitely a bit of a drive. So yeah, a Leafs fan. So yeah, they're like second last in the league. Exactly. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, Bert hates bad guys. I'm gonna have to watch. Gonna have to check that one out. Thank you for the recommendation. We'll take a look at that one. Oh, that's spam. Is that spam? Man, it came at just the perfect time. You know, I feel you there. Thank you for deleting that message, Michael. Thank you for being on top of that one. I feel you. Cheering for a team to lose is rough. And I don't know, like the reason I like going to live games is for the atmosphere, because I don't I don't even know if I don't know. It just there's something different about the atmosphere being there in a crowded arena, with tons of people. Um, it doesn't matter if the team's winning or losing. You're just having a good time, right? You're yelling at the refs. You're just going along with the crowd. It's a good time. Um, and so I agree with you there. Um, that watching a team, if they're going to lose, could be a little bit frustrating. So we're getting an action cells template. So already, it's recognizing that, hey, we're using cell templates for our actions. That's kind of cool. So we're going to accept this. So we're getting the actions, and it's grabbing the template. This is perfect. Enable sorting false. Again. So here, we don't really care by sorting by the delete button. So I'm good with that one too. Do we have, I guess I can use these buttons, right? So the next one is it's creating this template. So it's calling it an action cell. It's passing in the context. So we're getting a button, small, button error, button outline. So it's going to create a red button that's outlined, and it's a small button, so it's not going to have a lot of spacing around it. Interesting choice. I'm here for it. Click handle delete. This is what I like, but it's also doing an event stop propagation. I don't like this. We're going to change this just a bit. Instead, we're going to pass in the event here. And so it added a button, and it added the ARIA label. I like that. That's good. So it is a type button. Oh, it added a trash can. Okay, we'll give it to it. Fascinating choice. So we want to go down here, and we want to add the event. It's an event. Oh, and it added in the stop propagation. Perfect. So I prefer that over what it was doing. The reason that I prefer this over the semicolon event stop propagation is a personal choice. My dad calls me, uh, if they were even halfway okay, I could watch them, but cheering for them to lose so many games is frustrating. Dad calls me a fair weather fan, though. Fair enough. Totally. I mean, the interesting thing about sports is the ultimate um it's the ultimate expression of our human tribalism nature, right? Um, and it really doesn't matter the outcome of the game, but you've got people there that are so invested in the game. And even I get invested in the game, right? Like you're yelling at the refs over bad calls, and you're right. There's all these things that you do, and one of the expressions of tribalism is kind of that notion of, oh, you're not a real fan, you're a fair weather fan. Um, that's hilarious. He's not wrong. That's a fair assessment, right? Um, but it's that expression of us versus them, right? That tribalism instinct that we have as humans, and there's nothing wrong with the tribalism instinct. It's what allowed us to survive as humans. When you think about it, a lone human hunter back in the day, there were so many things that could go wrong. You could get injured and die out in the wilderness. You could get bitten by a snake and poison. Who knows what, right? There were so many things. You can't take down bigger prey that's going to provide better food, things like that. So there was this necessity to have a tribe to protect you, but also to allow the tribe as a whole did better. With the tribals, the downside to tribalism is that we become very protective as humans. And one of the worst things that can happen to humans, and this is driven deeply into our intellect and our psyche and our, all of that, is being ostracized from the group is one of the worst punishments that can happen to you, right? You think about high school being ostracized, you think about fear of rejection. You think about, the in and the out groups, even, in work and stuff like that. There's so many, there's so many ways that, like, one of the worst punishments that a human can receive is to be kicked out of a group. Um, and it really does wear on our psyche. It's fascinating as you study more and more psychology. It's very, very fascinating to see just um, how humans handle rejection and things like that. Um, so we've got the action cell. We're grabbing the template ref, and yeah, it's just grabbing the action cell that was created. That one's fine. And columns, default columns. Oh, we're passing an action cell to it also. So it was smart enough to fix up our default columns for us. And then we made this change ourselves, so we need to save this. And now this code all looks good. And I'm actually pretty impressed by how well it understood the code, how well it did stuff. A lot of this stuff would have taken a lot of time on the stream. First job out of college being the best example. So many resumes. Yeah. Jobs are tough. And there was actually there was an article released. Oh, I can't even remember where it was. I read a lot of like hiring and managerial stuff now, to try and be better as a manager. And one of the fascinating articles today, that I read this morning before the stream had to do with, getting jobs. And nine times out of 10, the person who gets the job is not necessarily the best qualified. They're the one that was the most gregarious and got along with the team the best. So that social dynamic, again, the tribalism, are they one of us, really came through here, right? Um, so yeah, hey, yo, alternate, welcome to the stream, man. The dev job market shifted in age to like 30 to 45, which is interesting. Work is mostly a social endeavor. It is, which is which is a tough thing because a lot of the developers I know are introverts, um, and you're not wrong about the job age. The problem with the job age shifting, like it's beneficial to me because I am very very close to that demographic. Um, Right. I fall just outside of that demographic. I was born in 1977. I'm 48 years old right now. So I'm right on that cusp. But in the past, I was starting to get old enough that I was being aged out of engineering. Now the engineering window is sliding with me, which is okay. Like, that's okay for me personally. I don't think it's okay for the industry. And the reason that I say that is that the industry needs new blood. We need new ideas. We need people who can take over because as we get older and we hit we hit the retirement age, well, that window slid. The window's not going to just all of a sudden snap back, right? We need the talent that comes. Sorry for bumping the microphone. I don't know what that sounded like to you guys, but very sorry for it. But we need that talent to take over for those of us that are old and aging, and we benefit from tools like this. It's making it much more difficult for the younger generation to crack in. Yeah, I'm 40, so I'm thrilled. Exactly, right? Like it works great because the engineering and development used to be very much like you could look at it almost like professional sports where you aged out at about 35 to 37, so having that window move has been great. So yeah. But yeah, definitely, it selfishly it's good for me. Unselfishly, if we look at the industry, it's not a good thing. We aren't bringing enough new talent into the industry, and my fear is that by not bringing in enough new talent, we aren't getting the new ideas that have really driven kind of this golden age of software development that's led us to where we are. There's been a lot of new ideas brought in by new people, and I worry about that. The problem with what we call AIs, right? LLMs, is they're never going to generate something that they haven't seen before. Um, we've got to figure out how to come up with new ideas, bring new ideas into the system. So I do worry about that. It brought in, what did it bring in? It brought in the to-do factory. I'm curious. So it brought in the to-do factory. Oh, I know why it had to bring in the to-do factory. Fascinating. This is an interesting choice. So it's creating a flex for the header. It changed our stuff to be a to-do list. So we went from just a to-do table. So now we've got a header to our stuff. We've got our button inside of this div that is justified. That all looks good. Interesting that we've got the add stuff here. And here's the add new to do. So, oh, interesting. So I don't like this code. And the reason I don't like this code is that we've added way too much logic into this to do. We can do better. And we will do better. So we'll figure this out. And there's some stuff that we can do. But for right now, we're going to accept this. And it's not bad. So what we'll do is, first of all, let's go take a look, right? So we can see that it builds. So it built just fine. Now, if we go take a look at our software, when we refresh to do table TS on line 164, to do table TS on line 164, our template is getting rather large for this table. So we're looking at line 164, export class to do table, what? Let's see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and terminate this. And let's just serve it again and see if TypeScript catches this error. Because it's saying we expected 2 arguments, but we got 1. Never mind. It was a caching issue. So let's bring up our console and just make sure everything's working. So if we delete this, boom, it's gone. If we add a new to do, we get this. So our task name, so already it's picked up that number 4 needs to be here. Our task name on this task will be refactor add, right? The random number came in as a 150. That's fine. I don't care. We'll do something else. This task is going to have highest priority. And the code generated is not optimal. Fix it. Right? So if we save this, we get the refactor add. And it's at the top on our importance here. And everything else is working as intended. You know, if it looks like we're good, it's not bad. So the first thing we can do is we can take this "hey, everything still works" stuff out. We don't need it. It's been there since the beginning. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So let's find that. Hey, everything still works. Boom. So we're going to take this piece out here. And my fingers are in the wrong place. So there we go. That is going to clean up that part. So now it looks better. We can make the scaling a little bit better. Our add new to do. I'm not a fan that it pops in with errors already, but that's fine. We can worry about that later. We also moved the error stuff below, so this is a test task, and I'm describing it here. And for fun, we'll add a script, alert, hi, just to make sure, hey, we aren't leaking. We aren't getting XSS and stuff like that in there. So we can see I'm a test task. We have no importance on it. So there we go. So we're in a good kind of place where we've got the add, we've got the delete. We can delete our test task. We can delete all of our tasks really if we want. Our add works, but there are some issues with it. So we've tested it. Let's go ahead and commit it, right? So we'll stage this file. Request too large. So this adds a file to help LLMs with Angular, or not that. This adds a file. Actually, let's do add LLMs-full.txt to give context to LLMs. Great. So there's that one. We're going to stage the rest of these. And instead of having the AI write this, we're going to be accepted changes from LLM to add and delete. So we've got this. Now this is the part where we provide our value as engineers. So when we look at the code in the to-do, there's a whole bunch of logic here. And there are a couple of reasons why we don't like our logic here. The first reason is it becomes much more difficult to test this. What we should do is this should all live in the store. And it could be better. Like this max ID could actually be, so every time we hit add, max ID is going to be run. Fine, whatever, right? What if this was a computed that was added on the store? That would make things a lot easier, right? The other thing we need to do is really this add to do. Well, let's start there. Let's start by moving max ID to the store. So you could make max ID, right? And we're going to use Markdown to. It's interesting, but LLMs really understand Markdown very well. We've trained them to understand Markdown so well. So we're going to use Markdown to kind of help provide context here and help it understand stuff, right? You could use max ID in the new add new to do method. A computed property in the store. And let's see what it does, right? Again, this is something that we could do easily, but it's interesting to see how the AI understands the code, or how the LLM understands the code, what it's going to do, and what are the benefits of it. So it managed to edit 2 files. Great. Eyes gleam with appreciation. Ah, the mortal shows wisdom. Indeed, calculating the maximum ID and the component is inefficient and architecturally impure. I actually really like that it calls this out, because architecturally, and this is where we can look at things from a bigger picture type, a bigger picture lens. This isn't wrong. This code right here isn't wrong. The reason that it isn't good is that it causes issues from an architectural standpoint. If we wanted to use max ID somewhere, or we wanted to grab the next ID somewhere, we'd start having to copy this code over and over again, and you would see this, right? You've seen this in code that you've worked with before, where somebody has figured out a way to grab an ID or do something special, and it just gets copied over and over again. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the biggest problems that engineers have when they're writing code is time constraints. Our industry has taken the skills of engineers to optimize things, and told them that the most important thing they need to optimize for is time, right? And how did we do that? Well, we did that with sprints. You have to get everything done in 2 weeks, right? Everything, is based on a 2-week window. Some companies do 3-week sprints, some do 4-week sprints. But really, when you're telling engineers you have to fit everything you need to do into time, engineers are going to optimize for that time. So when somebody figures something out, instead of thinking about, hey, architecturally, does this belong here? What tends to happen is somebody's like, oh yeah, I saw this in this other piece of code. Let me go grab that, copy, paste, right? And then we get this code copied and pasted everywhere. So one of the biggest, most beneficial things you can do as an engineer is think about the architectural decisions that you're making and what you're encouraging people to do. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing here, right? Technically, there's nothing wrong with it. Technically, it works. Architecturally, it has a problem. And that problem is that it's going to encourage people to do this same pattern. And worse, they may use this same pattern for other things. So if we encourage them to move things into the store, then we're going to encourage the pattern of, hey, use the store to compute things. And the benefit to this is that the next ID is calculated when the store determines that it needs to be calculated. That's a big benefit. Whereas here, the max ID was calculated every time we added a new to-do. Well, the reality is they're going to be the same. And so not a big deal. But in the future, it could be a big deal, right? Behold, mortal, your wisdom has been implemented. I have refactored the code with architectural excellence. What changed? And so we'll go through and see what changed. The benefits, it's reactive. Next ID is a computed signal. Totally correct. Encapsulated. Store owns its own ID generation logic. Totally correct. This is a good call out. Reusable. Other components could use next ID. We just talked about that. Efficient. Computed signals are memoized and only recalculated when dependencies change. We talked about that. Testable. Easier to test. And that's the other thing, right? When we go back to the idea of, and let's see if I can draw this right. We've talked about this in the past, but we've got the idea of the flashlight, right? And inside the flashlight, we have the batteries, and those are some very dangerous and ugly batteries, right? we've got the idea of the switch. And the switch connects the batteries to the light bulb, right? We've got the idea of the bulb here. And this is what provides the light, right? We want our code to be more like the flashlight than, the opposite of this was, our smartphones being used as a flashlight, right? The smartphone, you get everything. It's probably over-engineered, and it's very, very difficult to work with. With the flashlight, it serves its purpose, but we can test the bulb, we can test the batteries, and we can test the switch all on their own. With the flashlight here, right on your smartphone, you touch the screen, and the software is what turns the flash on, that turns on your flashlight, right? Much more difficult to test because it's so integrated, and the only way you can test it is by touching the screen. And if it doesn't work, you don't know if it's the bulb. It's probably not the batteries because the screen is on, but you don't know if the software has a bug or anything like that. And so this call out here of it being testable is a huge call out. I do appreciate that, right? Nods approvingly. Hey, I'm glad the dragon approves. Well spotted, human. You're learning to think like a dragon. Great. I always wanted to be a dragon. Always seeking the most elegant and efficient solution. So we're going to accept this change. Now we're going to take a look at the to-do list store. Here's our computed. So we're grabbing the to-dos. So the next ID is based on. So we actually want two things in here. And this is one thing that is really cool about this computed. And here we can go store. Boom. This is the really cool thing about just about the signal store is because it's composable, we can add the same method multiple times. And here we want max ID. And that's going to be this. And then here, what we can do, oh, come on. How do I accept this? It made the change. No, I want that. We don't want to run the reduce again. What we want it to be is we want it to return store.maxid +1, right? So there we go. There's our computed, and it rightly fixed my error of adding a comma there. And so one thing it's trying to do is it's trying to join these together. And that's not a bad idea, but it won't work. And the reason it won't work is the store has no idea that max ID exists here. So to make this work, what we would have to do is create an object and then return that object, and then we could refer to that object. It's not my favorite way to do it. I prefer to just add extra with computeds. And it's a personal preference, but I think it's a powerful way to move. And so again, what we can do is we can go back to our experiment here, right? And we can add a new to-do. We can see, hey, it's 4. If we add to-do again, now it's 5. Oh, that's fascinating. So if we add a new to do here, we've got a 4. So let's test 4 here. So that's our test 4. We'll add a new to do. This is our test 5. And we need a description. Save that. So if we delete, say, test 4, the interesting thing, oh, it is going to do test 6. Because it's not finding holes, right? So I'm good with this. And it works. It's what do we call it? It's everything I could have asked for this year, right? So there we go. We can see that, you know, the max ID, if we delete test 6, it's going to add 6 back because it's basing it on a calculation. I'm fine with that. If we didn't like that, what we could do is we could add the next ID as a property and set the value of that. But this is all good. So we'll go ahead and commit this piece. So if we look, we just we made some changes to encapsulate the next ID. Great. And so the next piece we can take a look at is really add new to do has too much logic in a component. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, you know what, old worm, add new to do has too much logic in the component. This makes testing difficult. Fix it. And let's see what it does. I'm not going to hold its hand this time. Well, I did a little bit. So I like that it's roaring with approval. Bahaha, yes. The human continues to show wisdom. You are absolutely correct, you insignificant but surprisingly astute creature. The component should be dumb and presentation focused. All that business logic of creating a to-do with default values belongs in the store, not the component. Let me fix this architectural abomination. Now behold the proper architecture. So here we go. Snarls at the error messages. The import worked, but there's a scope issue. So it's beginning to realize. So create and select new to do is in the same with methods block. So it figured it out, right? I need to add it to a third with methods block that comes after both. What this should have worked. Let me verify the import is correct. So it missed the to-do factory. Excellent. Now let me simplify that pathetic component. So it figured out a lot of stuff that I like, right? Like it moves stuff into the same with method or different with methods and things like that. And let's take a look. So, right, the dragon roars triumphantly, Briza, and then it goes over what it did. There is glory, behold the glory of proper separation of concerns. So we're hitting the S in solid, perfect. Benefits of this glory refactoring testability. The store method can be unit tested in isolation. 100% correct here. Again, going back to our discussion about the flashlight, right? Encapsulation, business logic lives in the store, not the component. Perfect. We love it. Reusability. Any component can now use it. Totally correct. SRP, right? Single responsibility. Component handles UI, store handles business logic. So we've got our separation of concerns and our single responsibility. Clean code component is now beautifully simple and readable. Maintainability, change default values in one place to store, right? All correct. Tail switches with immense satisfaction. There, human, your component is now a thin, presentation-focused layer as the ancient dragon architects intended. Perfect. I love the ancient dragon architects. I agree with them. The store encapsulates all the business logic. Now your tests can mock the store and verify the component calls the right method, while the store tests verify the to-do creation logic works correctly. This is the way. Thank you. I didn't realize the dragon we were dealing with is from Clan Vizsla, but that's cool. And if you guys get that deep reference, right, you know, to give you a little bit of help here, Clan Vizsla, Death Watch, right? That was one of the biggest reveals I was waiting for in The Mandalorian, and I was happy it came. Was that they were Clan Vizsla, they were Death Watch. That's why they couldn't remove their helmets. That's why they were, you know, this is the way. Really, really good reveal. So we're going to remove the to-do factory. That's correct. All of this goes down to one store method. So now we can click the button, like it said, and verify that this method is called on our mocked class. We don't have to worry that all of this happens on a button click. This can all be tested in the store. And that, right, that goes back to the flashlight. Think about that like a battery, right? We can test the battery itself and, oh yeah, it has power or it doesn't have power. The battery works. This is testing the integration of the battery into, you know, our flashlight. When we flick the switch, is create and select new to do called, right? If it is, then we can isolate and test things properly and make sure that things work. So this is a good refactor. To-do list store. So we add in the to-do factory. Perfect. And then it did properly pick this up. So we've got with methods, select to do and deselect to do. With methods, toggle to do and save to do. Add to do, delete to do. Create and select new to do had to go into its own because add to do is there. So create and select, so new to do factory, add to do, select to do, that's fine. So we've got this in place. Perfect. Let's accept it. We're in a much better place. Just make sure that everything is saved, and let's go ahead and kill our serve and just make sure that it all works. But there's some benefits here. It moves fast enough that, you know, we aren't spending a whole bunch of time writing code. Like, it's generating the code well. What we're spending our time doing is deciding, hey, is this good? And it's using our factory properly. We could make some small changes here, but we're fine. It's interesting that it chose a random number of 150. I don't know why it did, and a task importance of 0. We really don't even need these because of to-do factory. If we look at this, already has a random number and a task importance. But for whatever reason, the LLM chose to add them. So if we take a look at this, so really the only thing we should pass in is the name, the ID, and the description. We could leave the random number and the task importance out. So let's go clean this up. Actually, let's make the dragon clean it up. Let's see if the dragon can figure this out, right? Let's give it a hint, but not provide it with a lot of information. So let's just say, hey, you, let's say your refactor is okay, but you are providing too much to the to-do factory. Why are you doing that? So let's see, I probably gave it too much information, right? So it's saying the user is right. The factory already has a bunch of stuff. You're right. I'm being redundant, you clever little creature. I'm explicitly passing done, false, unnecessary. Factory already provides false. Random number 150, questionable. Factory has a default of 42. Task importance 0, questionable. The new to do, we really need to override the ID, yes. The name, yes. And the description, yes. Let me fix this. Well spotted, human. You're teaching this old dragon not to be redundant. The code is now cleaner and more maintainable. If we want to change the defaults for new to-dos, we can adjust the factory, not this method. Excellent call out here. One of the biggest benefits to a factory is that we can control the defaults, and it's calling that out here. Grudgingly bows head slightly. You continue to impress me with your attention to detail. Perhaps you're not as hopeless as I initially thought. So I was curious if it would remove name and description, but it didn't. It correctly identified that those shouldn't be removed. So this is another good refactor. Now we're only providing new values. Like, I don't know why it settled on 150. That was a weird choice. I also don't know why it settled on a default task importance of 0. If we wanted a default task importance of 0, we could have put that into, oh, this is cool. That's very cool. I like that. So there we go. So with a little bit of handholding, we were able to get to a much cleaner implementation. What I'm curious about is add to do pushes on there. Save to do, we could move this into save to do, but I actually like this decision. So my original idea, and the reason why I was leaving the index checking out, was I wanted to overload save to do, create an upsert, right? Like Dota 2 Attitude had suggested. By separating these two into save and add, we're in a better state because add probably has different validations than save. And so in that case, we don't want our add lumped in with save to do. Um, we're doing too much, and we're violating our single responsibility, right? Um, so I agree with this decision, uh, which is to say that Claude is really impressing me here. It needed some hand holding, right? Like it made some decisions that um, it made some decisions that were not questionable, and they weren't wrong. The code worked, but they weren't architecturally sound. And the benefit to what we're doing here is the LLM is creating the code. Our job is to be a code reviewer and then give the LLM the right, direction. Um, we're kind of the senior pair programmer here, right? We're saying, hey, oh yeah, that was okay, but what about this, right? What about that? Like we're pushing it in an architecturally better direction, and that's our job when we work with LLMs. Our job is not to generate code. Granted, there will be times where we're going to step in and be like, no, you're so far off base, let's fix this. Um, Here, we were able to get the model to do stuff and get it to do what we wanted. And like the code is not bad code. It's similar to code that I would have written. So, right, like I'm not going to get hung up on implementation details. When the code does what it should do, it's written the way that, I'm good with it. It probably I would have done a lot of what it did. So I think we're good. We did make some changes, right? We added the max ID and the next ID, where it only did next ID. Um, and we made some changes ourselves, but in general, we let the LLM do what it needed to do. Um, it's been an interesting experience. This is not something that I do a lot of. I'm enjoying it. It makes writing the code definitely more enjoyable, because a lot of the grind of writing code has been removed, and it's more of a creative and thoughtful endeavor at this point. Um, but for I think the coding to reach this level, you have to approach it from that, right, from that perspective. You can't just sit back and be passive. You've got to be interacting. And I'm really curious with the next piece that we're going to do. So right now we're good. And like the design decisions are okay. This plus is not like it's going to violate WCAG accessibility. It's not an accessible plus, right? Um, it's not. There's not enough contrast here. The basket is probably okay. Um, because I don't think that I don't know. I don't know if the emoji um has colors right associated with it. I don't know. Um, but I'm okay with it. What I want to do, and let's commit this because we're in a good place. Um, so stage all changes. Let's go ahead and get another LLM to create this. Boom. So here's the next piece, and this is where I think we're going to challenge the LLM itself. So what we want to do is we want to create a component that will allow us to add a due date to the task. Um, and I'm very, very curious how it's going to do it. So I'm going to give it some very specific instructions on what I want it to do. We need to add a due date to our task. To do this, I want you to use Daisy UI and signal form, a custom signal forms component for the date picker, and we need to add a due date to our task. To do this, I want you to use Daisy UI and a custom signal forms component for the date picker, and that's it. That's all the prodding we're going to give it. So let's see what we get. So we're getting a due date field. Excellent. You wish to track when these tasks must be completed, like how I track when treasure seekers will inevitably fail. Let me bestow upon your application a magnificent date picker component using signal forms. So I'm very, very curious. So it's starting out by modifying the to-do model. That's exactly what I would have done. I would have added the due date to the to-do model. I'm curious what it added. Did it add a proper, because we've got a factory method and stuff here. I wonder how this process would look like if you used Gherkin as instructions and never even look at the source folder. I don't know. I've never used Gherkin. I don't know how to answer that one, Yo alternate. This is again where you guys are probably further ahead. But I'm also very, very curious. I wonder how it would. Yeah, that would be fascinating to see how it would organize files, how it would do stuff. Also, if I'm not looking at the source code, I would be worried about the code that it generated, and that's probably old school me. But I definitely want. I definitely want better. What do I want to call it? Better. I want more control over the code. I want better architectural outcomes. I want the code to be put together in a smart way, because at some point somebody's going to have to interact with this code. And whether it is the LLM picking up patterns from the code, or it's another developer or me picking up patterns from the code, right? One of the interesting things about our brains and why LLMs seem to resonate so well with us is our brains are pattern recognition machines too. So let's see what we came up with. So the agent was terminated due to an error. Let's see if we can help it. But I want to take a look at its output. So we've got a bunch of stuff here going on with method. So more separate with method blocks. Oh no, this is the create and select new to do. So it's creating the date picker component. It modified that. It created the date picker test. It used form value control, which was smart, with Daisy UI styling, date string conversion, clear functionality, and proper signal forms integration. Interesting. It added the due date table, or added the due date to the table. So we'll take a look at this, and then it's trying to add the column, and I think that's where it failed. So let's take a look at what it did with the model. So due date is optional. I'm glad it made it optional. That's good. Here, it's using undefined. I actually don't want undefined. So we'll accept this. What I want it to do is, let's say, in the to-do model, in to-do mod, or let's do in the to-do factory. Make the due date default 1 week in the future. So it's analyzing that. We'll go ahead and I want to see what it does. So it did what it did something sensible. 1 week from now is the new date, right? So it's get date plus 7. Does that work? I don't know if this works. So let's run a test on this, right? So let's pull up our browser, and here, so we can just say, hey, var today equals new date, boom. And so if we look at today, that's it. And if we do today dot get date, plus 7 is 35, right? So the code it's using, if we take a look at it, is set date 1 week from now. So let's do the same, right? Today dot set date, today dot get date plus 7 today. So it did handle it properly. So 1 week from today is Sunday, January 4th. Perfect. So that's going to work. So we'll accept this. And we like that. Okay, so datepicker.ts. This is another one we're going to take a look at. So we got our change detection strategy and all of this. So this is our date picker. Our imports are not working. So we've got this. This is not good. Input ID. What is the input ID used for? So it's using the input ID. It's using a random number for the input. That's fascinating. I didn't realize this was deprecated. What's the replacement? So there's a bit wrong here, but we'll fix it up. The tests, well, no wonder you failed here. This would not ever work. So we're just going to reject these tests. And we're going to delete them. That's fine. Our to-do form, let's see what it modified here. So it brought in the date picker. That's great. It's importing the date picker. We'll select this. That's all good. And then with the to-do table, to-do table, due date, that, no due date, otherwise it's okay, that's fine. We could probably fix that up a little bit. So let's go take a look at the date picker control. So there are a couple of things that are weird about this date picker. One of the things I want to take a look at is let's go take a look at Daisy UI and see how Daisy does a date picker. So inside of here, let's look for date input. So here's a calendar input. It's the Cali here. So there's the Cali web component, pick a day calendar or React day picker. So this is using the Cali inputs here. So there's the Cali date picker example. On an input field, text input. So pick a day. Then the React day picker. I was recently looking for date picker, but the best that I could work with is ng primitive calendars or Spark ng date picker, but requires some theme setup with Daisy. Yeah, I'm curious, does pick a day work with Angular? So you include that. Then you have to grab it. So let's. Hmm. Because if we look here and we look at Angular Aria. Angular Aria doesn't have a date picker. Um, so then we're looking at where is it? Angular Architects, Form UI Control. I don't remember where we've got it. Is this ng primitives? Yes. Angular primitives. They have a calendar in the Aria grid, do they? In the grid. Hmm. Do we go that far? Do we go that far? Should we write our own calendar component? Yeah, I was taking a look at the Angular primitives. Um, Date picker. Assemble the date picker directive in your template. Create a reusable component. So there's a date range picker. But let's see if we can get a date picker to work. So in the app, and then in the date picker TS, we've got our template here. Dang, there's a lot here. Can we make this work? So we've got host directives here. We've got providers for icons. We've got a value accessor of date picker. That's the issue that we've got. Yeah, implementing it is a lot of work. See, what I want it to do is I want it to pop up. Like this date picker is cool, but I want it to pop up. So similar to what we're seeing here, right, with our pick a date. I want to bind it to this. So we need a popover. So we can go with native. We could go with native. That's actually not bad. Let's go with native. We'll go with native for now. So that's to clear the date. Oh, it's using a date input here. Fascinating. Very fascinating. Does this serve? I think it got stuck on the tests. But if we can make the native inputs look good, I'm fine with you. I would prefer to use native. So I won't even say I'm fine with it. I would prefer to use native. That's probably why there's not a date picker, because Angular probably would prefer you to use native too. So add a new to-do. Due date. Look at that. We've got some problems here. Let's refresh this. So when we add, we're okay. Test. And that removes it. No, it doesn't. That does remove it. Boom. So if we edit this one, we get nothing. So there's a problem if there isn't a due date. What is the problem we're getting here? This dot field is not a function. Form.dueDate. So there's a problem. There's a problem if we don't provide a due date. Also, this button doesn't work. So it's also saying this dot field is not a function. If I save this, oh. So it's the add function. So if we go test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go. We save this. Oh, it's there. Let's go into the future a bit. There we go. However, if we just save this like this, it's saying that, and when we edit it, still fine. So it's really, if we clear the date and then we save it with no due date, then it can't handle it. And as soon as we do that, everything's broken. So it is using a native date picker. It's way bigger than it needs to be. So we'll fix that. Like, this is way too big. Let's clean this up a bit. This dot value dot set undefined. So let's follow what we did in the let's follow what we did in the input control. So we passed in a field tree. So we can do the same here. So instead of the value, and on input, we also didn't extend that. So we're going to remove the form value control here. And instead, we're going to bring in our field tree. And yep, that should be. How do I accept that? Date or undefined. So we want disabled, we want label, placeholder, and has error. Those should all be fine. That should be fine. What were we using the date string for? So we've got our label. If it has a value, and here, instead of that, what we want is if field dot. So if field dot value, right? Does that not exist? If field dot let's go back and take a look at field equals input dot required. Yeah, it should just be field dot Is it just not picking up value? Can it get invalid here? Okay, so field.value, boom. And here, instead of value, we just want field. And here we just pass in field. Disabled, placeholder, input. Is it not field? Field equals field. Field dot invalid. What isn't like this? Can't bind to this is, it isn't a known property of input. It is a known property of input. It's not liking what we're doing. This dot field dot value dot set. We can't do that. Let's take some of this out. So let's comment this stuff here. We've still got a bunch of, we can't have handle input now. So we'll uncomment that and that. We'll uncomment that and that. That should be fine. But it's still saying that we can't bind to a field. And it is saying that we can't bind to input. Field and field tree. Oh, we need to import field. So that should fix that, right? Yeah. That should fix that. Yeah. Let's remove the disabled here for now. Because that, yeah, that's a good fix. Also, field disabled, which means we don't need this. We don't need that. Field dot has error. We're probably missing some stuff here. We may have to end this here. So the property value on field tree date. We're going to need to do some more work here. So I need to end this today. We will come back to this next week and take a look at what we want to do here. I'll go ahead and commit everything before these changes and get that all merged in. But yeah, we need to take a look at what we need to do to make a date field work. I know that there's some manipulation we're going to have to do on the field itself. So we'll take a look at that. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Michael. Please feel free to promote something. And by the way, Ola, thank you for pointing out we can use native. I always forget that native is pretty good anymore, and we can do a lot of styling on it. So we'll take a look at that. Hey, Michael, you may just be catching up. I'll let you go. NGRX Toolkit is looking into adding a community content showcase on the docs. So if anyone is interested, get a hold of me, or when it is made, make a discussion item. Yeah, NGRX Toolkit is a toolkit we're using in this project. It's a toolkit I use myself. It's put together by some really cool people, Michael being one of them. And you guys should definitely check it out. Please help them make it much better. There's some other stuff coming that I don't know that I can talk about. Yeah. So Ola is experimenting with Daisy UI and some components. Very, very cool, Ola. We'll get this date picker working. The reason I chose a date picker is on purpose because I wanted to. This is something that a lot of applications use, and I want to make it look good and feel good and behave the way we would expect it to. But thank you, Michael, and thank you for promoting that. And by all means, you guys go check out NGRX Toolkit. They're doing amazing things for our community. You guys have a great week. If you're off, enjoy it. Happy New Year. We'll be back after the new year to do some more streaming. And we'll get this date picker figured out. Thank you all. We'll see you next